Episode 1. She frowns mid-sentence. I wasn't even supposed to be watching her that night. I'd been doom scrolling through a mess of meaningless videos when her thumbnail appeared off lighting. Familiar smile, the faint hum of a microphone. Something about her expression looked different, almost nervous. She was mid-story when I joined the stream, and then I told him, "If you open that door," she stopped. Just like that, frowning. Not the buffering kinthis was stillness, like the very idea of movement had been erased from her. Her lips trembled as if trying to form another word, but no sound came. Her eyes widened, glistening under the ring light, fixed on something just beyond the camera. The chat erupted. WTF? Is this part of the stream? LAGGG. A few messages appeared in languages I didn't recognize, the symbols and characters I couldn't even copy. That's when the light changed. It was subtle at first, the warm amber glow shifting toward a colder, unnatural blue. Shadows bled upward from the floor, stretching over the walls like spilled and climbing toward the ceiling. The camera feed wavered, distorted, like I was watching through thick water. Her breathing barely audible before a no came in sharp, shallow bursts. Then, nothing. Silence. The empty hum of the microphone filled the air as her image flickered once, twice, and on the third flicker she was gone. The chair still rocked gently, as if she just stood up, but the frame was empty. No scream, no crash, no fade to black, just absence. The chat went insane, text pouring faster than my eyes could track. But then, without warning, every message vanished at once. New ones appeared, all from unfamiliar accounts, all posting the same string of symbols. My cursor hovered over the rewind button, but the option was gone. The timestamp frowncy. The viewer count ticked downward in chunks, like people were being forcefully disconnected. I glanced at the clock on my desk, 11:40, and then back at the stream. The camera angle hadn't changed, but something about the room felt wrong now. The shadows didn't match the shape of the furniture. They bent the wrong way, toward the light instead of away from it. The last few viewers in chat stopped typing entirely. For a moment, the silence felt heavier than the glitch, and then a single message appeared, centered in the chat box, as if written just for me. "Don't look for her." Before I could screenshot it, the stream cut to black. My screen reflected my own face back at me, wide-eyed, pale, with my mouth slightly open, but for a split second, I swear the reflection smiled, and it wasn't my smile. Episode 2. The chat kept moving. The stream had ended, but the chat kept going. Not on her channel, not anywhere I could publicly access, but in a floating pop-up window still anchored on my screen. The video feed was gone, replaced by pure black, yet the chat scrolled endlessly, messages bleeding upward like water bubbles in reverse. At first, I thought my browser had glitched. Then I noticed the usernames. None of them were familiar. No avatars, no profile links, no timestamps, just rows of text. If you could even call it that, strings of broken symbols and shapes that looked like they belonged on a stone tablet, not a keyboard. I tried typing something. Is this a joke? The moment I hit enter, the chat frowncy. Every line of text stopped mid-scroll. For a heartbeat, I thought I'd broken whatever was happening. But then, in the empty silence, my own message began to stretch. The letters elongated, twisting into unreadable shapes until my question was gone, replaced by the same strange code everyone else had been posting. And then, one line appeared at the very bottom, different from the rest. "Greater than you saw her leave. You cannot UNSAWIT. My pulse hammered against my ribs. I typed again, fingers shaking. "Where is she?" This time, the reply came instantly. "Greater than turn off your camera." I spun in my chair, scanning my room. My webcam's tiny red light was on. I didn't remember turning it on. Before I could cover it, a new message popped up. "Greater than too late." The chat window began to pulse, its black background rippling like the surface of oil. I could swear something was moving just beneath its shapes, too vague to name, but too human to ignore. My instinct screamed to close the window. I clicked the red X in the corner. Nothing happened. I tried first quitting the browser, yanking the Ethernet cable, even shutting down my PC. None of it worked. The chat kept moving, unstoppable, streaming in an unending tide of those warped symbols. Then, in the middle of all that chaos, A final line appeared. Greater than check your for northeast. My stomach dropped. I picked it up, and there she was, her face filling the entire screen. Eyes wide and unblinking, lips moving soundlessly. The timestamp in the corner read live, but the camera angle wasn't hers. It was mine. Episode 3. Her room was still lit. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face on my phone, screen staring, mouthing words I couldn't hear, as if sound no longer existed where she was. When dawn came, my computer was still on, still displaying the chat that should have died hours ago. But there was something new. A link. It wasn't blue like a normal hyperlink, more like a faint tear in the black background. A shimmering slit of light against every shred of common sense. I clicked it. The window changed instantly. No more chat, no text, no interface, just a live feed. It was her room. The same white curtains, the same desk clutter, the same green light sitting in the corner, except now everything was baked in a sickly red glow. As if there itself was bleeding. The camera was fixed in the exact same angle as the night she vanished. At first, the room was empty. Then I heard it, a sound so faint I thought it was my own breathing, except it wasn't. It was whispering, not a single voice, but down scenes, layered over each other, speaking too quickly to understand, like a crowd praying in a language older than words. My hand hovered over the volume control, but before I could adjust it, the feed flickered. For a split second, she was there, not sitting, standing, turned toward the camera. Her hair hung over half her face, but the visible light was wrong, glossy, too wide. She opened her mouth, but instead of speaking, a deep wetness filled the speakers. The lights in my room dimmed, flickering in sync with the distortion. Then she was gone again, leaving the chair swaying ever so slightly. The whispering didn't stop. It grew sharper, almost frantic, and as I leaned closer, I realized the voices were saying the same thing over and over. My name. I stumbled back from the desk, heart pounding. That's when I noticed the small rectangle in the corner of the streamer reflection. A webcam preview. It wasn't showing me, it was showing her, standing directly behind my chair. Episode 4. The freeze frame. I didn't turn around. Every instinct screamed at me to look, but something deeper, something primal told me that if I did, I wouldn't see her standing there. I'd see whatever had taken her place. My hands shook as I slammed the laptop shut. The red glow from the feed vanished, plunging the room into a silence so heavy it felt physical. But it didn't last. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. One image. I wish I deleted it without opening it. It was a photo of her exactly as she'd been the second before she disappeared on the stream, frowning mid-motion, mouth half open, eyes wide with terror. But there was something else now, something behind her. A shadow. At first, I thought it was a trick of the lighting, but no, shadow bends upward like smoke and still has weight. This thing towered over her, featureless except for down scenes of pale, jointed fingers sprouting from where a head should be, fingers that seemed to press forward, reaching, curling toward her hair. My breath caught as I noticed the timestamp embedded in the corner of the image. It was yesterday afternoon, 12 hours before she vanished. I tried to forward the image, but the option was gone. Instead, my phone screen blinked black, then came back to life with my own camera open front-facing. I was alone, at least, I thought I was. Behind me, in the tiny preview window, something moved. Just a shift in the dark, like a curtain swaying where there was no wind. I forced myself to turn. The corner of my room was empty, but my skin crawled as I noticed the shadow on the wall stretched tall and thin, its arms hanging low, fingers grazing the floor. And yet, I was sitting perfectly still. The phone buzzed again. Another image. This time, it was me, in my chair, with those same fingers coiled around my shoulders. Episode 5. Her last DM. I didn't want to open my messages, but when someone who no longer exists sends you a direct message, curiosity isn't just temptation, it's compulsion. The notification Saturday. They're like a burning ember in my inbox from her username. The account should have been gone. The platform had deleted every trace of her the night she vanished. Yet there it was, as if she never left. I tapped it. It wasn't text. It was an audio file, 32 seconds long. The moment it played, my headphones filled with the sound of her breathing, uneven, ragged, like she'd been running for miles. "If you're hearing this," she whispered, "don't try to find me. They can hear you when you look." I frowned. Her voice trembled as she continued. "It started with a mirror, not mine. I saw it in the background of someone else's screen just for a second, but it didn't show me. It showed something else wearing my face. And once it knows you've seen it," she stopped. A muffled thud echoed in the background, followed by a faint scratching sound, like nails on glass. "Don't let them in," she whispered, voice breaking, "especially not through." The recording cut off with a sharp, wet crack, followed by a long, shuddering exhale. Then silence. I stared at the waveform frowned on my screen. My chest felt tight. I replayed it, trying to hear the last word she'd been about to say. On the third listen, I realized something. The exhale at the end wasn't hers. It was deeper, thicker, almost amused. Before I could react, another message appeared from her account. "Greater than your next to speak." My phone screen flickered, and for a brief moment, my reflection in the glass wasn't moving the way I was. Episode 6, The Glitch in my feed. I stopped scrolling social media for 2 days. No streams, no videos, no late night rabbit holes. But on the third morning, my feed decided for me. It started with a thumbnail, not just a similar image, the exact one from her last stream, down to the faint tilt of her head and the ring light halo in her eyes. The title was nothing but static. I didn't click it, it clicked itself. The video opened full screen. At first, it looked like a replay of the night she vanished. But the timeline bar was gone. I couldn't pause, couldn't skip. I watched her smile into the camera. The moment before her eyes widened and she frowned. Except this time, she didn't disappear. The frame jittered, colors bleeding into each other. Behind her, the shadows moved slow at first, then in sharp, deliberate pulses, like frames missing from reality. Every few seconds, the screen would glitch, and in that single stuttering instant, it wasn't her in the chair anymore. It was someone else. Me. I was sitting in her chair, bathed in that same red light. My expression slack, my eyes wide and glassy. I yanked the power cable from my PC. The screen went black. Relief washed over me until the faint reflection of my monitor shimmered, like static trapped behind glass. In the reflection, my chair was empty. I turned slowly, empty, but when I looked back at the dark screen, there I was again sitting in the chair, except now I was smiling, and in the warped, black glass reflection, I could see something standing behind me. It wasn't a shadow this time. It was solid, and it was leaning closer. Episode 7, The Empty Apartment. I told myself I wasn't going to get involved any deeper. Then I found her address. It wasn't hard buried in a cache fan wiki, half erased but still there if you knew where to look. I almost convinced myself it was a bad idea, until I remembered the photo of those fingers on my shoulders. I needed answers. The building was older than I expected. A weather-stained concrete block wedged between the glass towers. No doorman, no security, just a buzzing fluorescent light over the front door that flickered in time with my heartbeat. Her apartment was on the 4th floor. I expected to find police tape, maybe even a new tenant. Instead, the door was ajar. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with the scent of dust and something faintly metallic. The place looked like she'd stepped out mid-sentence, a coffee mug half full, makeup scattered on the vanity, a sweater draped over the back of her chair. A chair. It was the same one from the stream. The same faint scratch along the armrest. The same indentation in the cushion. A webcam still Saturday on the desk. Its lens kept, but I could swear I heard it humming. I moved deeper in. That's when I noticed the clock on the wall. Its hands were frowning at 17 a.m. A faint sound drew me toward the bathroom. The door was locked from the inside. I knocked. No answer. I pressed my ear to the wood and caught the faintest trace of whispering, just like in the private stream. I was ready to kick the door in when I realized something chilling. The whispers weren't coming from behind the door. They were coming from the mirror in the hallway. I stepped closer. My reflection stared back, but the room behind it was wrong. The lighting was red, and in that reflection, the bathroom door was wide open. Something moved inside, too tall, too thin, his fingers brushing the floor. I stumbled back, heart pounding. The mirror went black, and in that blackness, a single word formed in glowing text. Live. Episode 8. The Followers. I thought I was alone in this. I was wrong. The first message came through an encrypted email. No subject line, just a link to a private forum. At first glance, it was a fan group dedicated to her, archive clips, screen captures, speculation threads. But the deeper I scrolled, the stranger it got. They called themselves the Ascended Feed, and they didn't think she was missing. According to them, she had crossed over into the realm beyond the frame. They spoke about it like it was a higher state of being a place where you could live forever as part of the stream. She is live now. One post read, and we can join her if we follow the sequence. The sequence. It was a ritual disguised as a live stream challenge. 15 minutes of silence in a dark room, staring into your own webcam, while the group's audio track played in the background. The file link was there, unguarded. My cursor hovered over it longer than I'd like to admit. Scrolling further, I found recordings of their attempts. Grainy, dim-lit faces sitting still before their cameras. Some lasted the full 15 minutes. Others didn't. In one video, a man's face twitched violently at the 8-minute mark, his eyes rolling back before the stream cut out. The comments below were celebratory. He's gone. As if that was the goal. Then I saw her, buried in a thread, marked with nothing but static symbols, was a single frame grab. Her face in the corner of someone else's ritual stream. She wasn't smiling. She was watching. I should have closed the forum right then, but a notification popped up. Private message from a user named Liv Free VR. Greater than we've seen you watching. Your reflection is almost ready. Before I could block them, my webcam light clicked on by itself, and in the faint glow of the preview window, I saw not just my own face, but hers, over my shoulder, mouthing a single word. Join. Episode 9. The Other Stream. I woke up to find a new notification on my phone, only that shouldn't exist. A live stream link, sent from her account. No title, no thumbnail, just the word live. I told myself not to open it. I opened it anyway. The feed loaded instantly. No buffering. At first, I thought it was a replay of her last night. The night she vanished, same angle. The same faint red hue bleeding into the walls. But as the camera sharpened, my stomach dropped. It wasn't her in the chair. It was me. I was sitting there, motionless, bathed in that unholy light, staring straight into the camera. My hair was messy. My hoodie the same one I've worn to bed. My face, pale to pale. I glanced at my reflection in the dark phone screen. I was standing, holding the device, so how could I be sitting there at the same time? I tried to exit the feed. No back button, no home button, nothing worked. The chat began to scroll. Hundreds of usernames I didn't recognize, all typing the same thing in a language I couldn't read. Then a single message appeared in perfect English. Greater than you're streaming from both sides now. The me on screen blinked for the first time and smiled. Slowly, like it hurt. My reflection leaned forward in the chair, close enough that the webcam lens distorted its features. I heard a faint scratching from my desk. My laptop closed was vibrating slightly, the hinge creaking. On the feed, the other me reached down and picked something up from under the desk. I recognized it immediately, the mirror from her apartment. It filled the frame, and in its glass, I saw not me, not her, but them, tall shapes with jointed fingers, pressing against the other side, eager to come through. The scratching from my desk grew louder. My laptop hinge started to open on its own, and on the feed, the other me whispered, "Stay live." Episode 10. Messages from the Stag. When I finally tore myself away from the screen, the sound didn't stop. Even with the stream closed, my room was filled with a low like an untuned radio, constant and alive. It came from everywhere. My phone, my laptop, even the TV that wasn't plugged in. I tried to block it out, but then I noticed something in the noise. Patterns. At first, I thought it was my brain playing tricks, finding shapes in chaos. But the more I listened, the more certain I became. The static was pulsing in short and long bursts. A rhythm, Morse code. I downloaded a translator app, holding my phone close to the sound. The dots and dashes scrolled in real time, forming words. HELPMA. My blood went cold. The next sequence came faster, almost frantic. mirroring. I didn't want to believe it, but my eyes drifted toward the hallway mirror. In the faint reflection, my room was wrong. The shadows were angled differently, stretching toward the glass instead of away. Something moved. They're slow, deliberate. Another sequence spilled out of the static. TONOTTURNAROUND. I frowned, see, every nerve screaming at me to run. But my feet wouldn't move. The hiss deepened, thickened, until it sounded like breathing long, slow inhalations right behind me. One final sequence came through, each letter punched out like a scream. THEYARELIVE. And then, the static stopped. The silence was worse. I glanced at the mirror. Something was pressed against the other side, now a pale, many-fingered hand dragging slowly down the glass, leaving trails like frost. My phone lit up with a new message from her account. Greater than, don't let them reach your side, or you'll never stop streaming. Episode 11 offline. I thought I could end it by pulling the plug. Literally, I shut down my phone, yanked my router from the wall, and killed the breaker for the entire apartment. No lights, no screens, no way for anything to stream. I sat in the darkness, breathing hard, waiting for the silence to feel safe again. It didn't. In the corner of the room, my laptop screen lit up, glowing faintly, though it wasn't plugged in, though the battery had been dead for weeks. The same feed was playing. My room, my chair, but empty. Empty at first. Then, as the camera refocused, I saw movement, something stepping into frame from the left, then jointed fingers curling around the armrest of the chair. Not hers, not mine, something older. I snapped the laptop shut. The glow didn't fade. It leaked through the cracks in the casing, as if the light was trying to get out. I grabbed my phone to call someone, anyone in Frowncy. The screen was on, though I hadn't turned it on. A single app was open. The streaming platform. There was only one channel listed. Live. Ew. The thumbnail was me, sitting in my chair. Even though I was standing in the middle of the room, I could hear faint audio, now whispers layered over the sound of my own breathing. I powered the phone off again. It didn't matter. The screen stayed lit. The word live pulsing in time with my heartbeat. A notification appeared without sound. Greater than, you can't log out. You never were. The lights flickered back on by themselves. Every screen in the apartment lit up at OnSIP. Laptop. Even the dark microwave display showing the same feed. Me, in that chair, with something tall and faceless standing behind me. And then the camera in the feed leaned forward, closing the gap, until the entire frame was swallowed by shadow. Episode 12 going live. There's only one way to end this. I have to stream. The idea hit me sometime between the third hour of staring at my own looping feed and the moment I realized sleep wasn't coming back. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was their whisper. Either way, I powered on my camera, not the one they'd been using. My own. The red light blinked on. Live. At first, it was just me. I spoke directly into the lens, my voice low, shaky. I know you're watching. I know you want me. The chat began to scroll instantly. Not my followers, these were the same accounts from her disappearance. Spelling symbols I couldn't read. Between the chaos, one message appeared in English. Greater than, we hear you. The temperature in the room dropped so fast my breath fogged. Shadows shifted against the wall, not cast by anything I could see. I kept talking, kept buying myself seconds. Bring her back. Take me instead. The screen flickered. For a heartbeat, she was there in my frame, sitting in the chair across from me. Her eyes were glassy, her lips moving without sound. I leaned closer. Say it, I begged. Tell me what to do. The feed warped. My camera angle stretched unnaturally wide, pulling the walls farther apart. The space behind her wasn't my apartment anymore. It was endless, black, and from that blackness, the shapes emerged tall, jointed, fingers curling around the edges of the frame. The chat Frowncy. A final message slid into view. Greater than, trade accepted. Her body convulsed once. She blinked, focused on me, and whispered red clear this time one. Before I could move, something cold closed around my shoulders. My chair spun toward the camera, and I saw myself on screen, smiling with a mouth that wasn't mine. The last thing I remember before the feed cut was her face, disappearing into the static, and my own reflection in the monitor. Still live.
Epilogue, still live. They found my apartment 3 days later. The door was unlocked. Lights off. Everything untouched, except for the chair in front of my desk. Turned toward the webcam. The police report says my devices were powered down. But the crime scene photos tell another story. In each image, my laptop screen is faintly glowing red. The official statement is no signs of forced entry. No signs of struggle. They say I must have left on my own. But the feed never stopped. Somewhere online, no one will admit exactly where, you can still find it. A grainy live stream. My username flashing at the top. The word live pulsing in the corner. I'm there in the frame. Sitting perfectly still. Eyes fixed on the camera. Sometimes, people claim they see her walking behind me. Sometimes, people claim they see themselves. And if you watch long enough, really watch, you might notice something else. I'm not breathing. But you are. And they can hear it.